Welcome to the Honest Designers Show, your transparent look into life as a modern designer. My name's Tom Ross, and I'm the founder over at designcuts.com. And this week, I'm joined by my fellow Brit and expert hand letterer, Ian Barnard, American retro design expert, Dustin Lee, and the ever-talented South African illustrator, Lisa Glantz. In this week's episode, we answer some listener questions and cover a range of issues. Everything from how to avoid compromising your morals during a design project to how to price yourself competitively and how to organise your projects better. There's a lot in this one, folks, and it is a good one. So without further ado, let's get into the show. So this week, I'm pumped because we are back with another round of listener questions.
Woohoo.
I think I actually put out a shout out on my Instagram and some very kind people. We got a bunch of questions and we've handpicked some of our favorites to kick off this episode. So don't know about you guys, but I enjoy these.
Me too.
Me too.
I think there's a good variety in the questions today. So hopefully we are going to be able to help David, Sierra and Rebecca with their questions.
Yep.
And let's get into it. So first question is from David Grimes. And I have to apologize. I've been very sloppy here. I haven't actually saved anyone's Instagram handles.
I've got his Instagram handle here.
Oh, go on, hit it up.
So his is at Maz Grimes, MASGRIMES.
Cool.
But if you do a search for David Grimes in the search function, it will pick him up. So
sweet. Yeah, it's quite a unique name. I feel like he should be directing horror films or something.
Yeah.
It's a very cool name.
he's a very, very good clicker. So if you follow him for some great posts.
Yeah, absolutely. I checked out his profile. One of those sickeningly talented people that make me jealous. So anyway, David's question is, what are your thoughts on compromising your personal beliefs when getting involved with projects that might promote things that are in conflict with what you believe for either money or exposure? So just to kind of caveat that, I guess this is something probably a lot of us and the listeners have faced. And do you sacrifice your beliefs? Do you sacrifice your morals if a client comes to you with a weird request? I can instantly see Lisa here shaking her head. She is the ethical one in the group. Lisa, why don't you kick off then? Because I think you've been in this position, right?
I have been in this situation. Okay, it was a pretty extreme situation. So the decision for me was very easy. But I strongly believe you shouldn't compromise because your beliefs are your beliefs. I mean, they're there for a reason. You develop them because you have strong feelings, and it would be crazy to go back on them. It's like lying to yourself. It doesn't make sense. So in my particular situation, somebody wanted us to design a brochure for can hunting. And if you don't know what that is, it's basically people buy the opportunity to get into a Land Rover and hit the bush and basically find a lion that has been in a sort of controlled environment and shoot them. So it's stupid, it's dumb, and I feel really strongly about that. And yeah, I took one look at her and I said, there is no chance in hell I will be designing anything for you or your company or anything you do. So yeah.
What do they want with your style though? Like, what are you going to do? Draw some cute lion with a bullet hole in its head or something?
Well, I mean, it was basically designing a brochure to promote her business, and her business was getting overseas because it's unfortunately it attracts foreign people to South Africa, and it's big money. Mm-hmm. So what they do is they sell the opportunity that you can go back to wherever you came from and say, look what I killed. I killed a lion, and here's the evidence, and here's his head and his skin to go with it. I mean, it's revolting. It's absolutely disgusting.
Yeah.
But anyway, the point is that that for me, that was an absolute no-brainer. It's not even a debate. It was easy decision. So yeah,
I do not blame you. We tend not to we never get political or anything, and we tend not to take a firm stance on these types of things on the show. But I think I can speak for all four of us when it's like, no, like that is just that's So,
I mean, even if the job, it was good money, but I didn't care.
Yeah, I have the same.
Yeah.
I have in fact, it's on the terms for my side. I can't control the terms other places where things happen, but on my own site, I say specifically, for instance, it can't be used for pornography. One specific example that happened recently to me was business that had used me for other projects wanted to use me on use something I had for cigarettes. And I make it's a really simple question for me. I just ask myself two things, basically. I say, when my daughters are old enough to have a conversation about this, if it ever did come up, would I feel comfortable explaining why I did it? And do I want to know the food going into their mouth came from proceeds from something that did this?
That's
so
a
I
good
think,
gauge.
do I want to feed my kids with money that came from selling cigarettes or trading people's lives? Is how I personally feel about it. So I just feel like I can't, anything that I can't explain to my little girls when they're old enough to ask, I just don't do.
That's a good gauge.
Yeah. How about you, Ian?
For me, when I was doing some website work for a company who provides the platform, and so what happens is that other companies would buy the platform, and then I'd come along and place my design on top of it for them. And so what happens is that one of the salespeople in there gets in contact with me saying, got this company, they need some designs. And so one of them was a sex toy shop. And so, the salesperson said, here's this one. Do you want to do it or not? And I, was able to, it wasn't like a hard situation where I had to argue with them. It was just like, no, this is not along what I want to be doing. So I will pass on that, even though I really needed the money at the time, it was definitely not something I wanted to pursue. And so, they were fine with that. So it wasn't, it wasn't like a big issue. It was that I chose not to do that, and they were happy, and they never passed any that were along that. I did, go further, say that, and there was like black magic stuff, anything like that was a sort of a no-no.
But I think it's important to note there will be different levels of what people don't feel comfortable with.
Yeah,
so,
definitely.
So it's going to be personal for each person.
Definitely.
For me, I almost want to flip this and take it to an extreme where I'm same as you guys. I wouldn't compromise my morals for a design job, but almost to the other extreme. When I was freelancing, I would really only accept after a certain point the ones that really inspired me and excited me and I wanted to work on. So not only would I eschew the ones which were morally not aligned with me, but even if I found something boring or uninspiring, I wouldn't want to work on it. And so when you get into that more selective mindset, and I think this goes for anything, like I've been looking at video agencies recently, and I think the best ones only deal with products and companies that they really care about and are passionate about and use themselves. Same thing for business or marketing. Like, for example, affiliate marketers, they only talk about stuff which they're really passionate about themselves. And I think when you have that mindset, it takes you so far away from even considering stuff that is morally bankrupt. It actually takes you away from stuff which is just dull. And that's where I would take my focus. But it certainly sounds like all four of us, this is actually quite an easy answer, where it's like, what are our thoughts on compromising our beliefs? Don't do it.
Yep.
And how we haven't really touched on how about, I don't think David's in this position, but for anyone listening, what about if you do need the money? What would your mindset be there? Because I mean, I would personally say you don't want to look back and regret it. So even if you need it at the time, if you can write it out and not do that and find another way, that is going to benefit you. And whatever that chunk of money is now, as meaningful as that is to you, hopefully in 20 years' time, you'll look back and that won't seem like a huge amount of money or such a big deal as it does in that particular moment.
Yeah.
The money will feel good for however long it lasts, which won't be that long, and you'll cringe for the rest of your life.
Yeah. Basically.
And I suppose it's the same for the exposure thing as well. I suppose I suppose you don't want to do something that's going to dent, especially online. I suppose if you associate yourself with a certain product or brand or company or whatever, feed or whatever that may be, then that can harm your brand. Well, I suppose it all ends up with money in the end, but it can harm your online brand if people see that and they go, it might leave a bad taste in the mouth of your people that are following you as well.
I'm curious what you guys think about this, though. Like, we're talking about really extreme things that most people can agree, pornography or cigarettes, things like that. Most of us can agree on. I don't really want to do that kind of work. But what about things, for instance, where it's politics, where maybe 50% of the population thinks this is great, 50% thinks it's not. So, for instance, in the United States right now, there's very polarizing politics happening here. So, by standing up against a particular side, you're potentially alienating 50% of your audience. And I know you guys have a similar thing going on over there in the UK. Not so much sure what's going on, in South Africa. But what about situations like that where maybe it doesn't match?
I think you need to politics. Yeah, I think you need to break it down. Oh, there's that word again. You need to break it down to
break it down.
You're a bit slow there, Dustin.
Yeah, sorry. I don't know how to break it down.
Into the basic human rights thing. Like, in other words, politics aside, if somebody is being rude about another human being, then that's what you're tackling, really. That's what you should be tackling, rather than getting all political and choosing sides in terms of politics. I think it should be, like if someone's calling this person a horror of something or whatever. I don't know what you Americans call each other in politics, but it's about how you're respecting the other human being. So I think that there's nothing wrong with showing that you should be encouraging respect amongst each other. But I think choosing sides politically in a public way you might start entering into a funny, tricky ground. I don't know.
I suppose if you look at it and say, if I take on this job, which is maybe part of a party, will this money that I get on be better or worse than what I will lose from the fact that I'm going to alienate people from siding with this political party? You just have to think, okay, how does this work for my business? Because it's not all about the short-term gains. It's all about the, because with so much online, you only have to do, assign yourself to, someone has to assign themselves to be, especially like on Twitter, they say they're a Trump supporter. That's it. You get a tidal wave of people who oppose you. And that could be, and that can give you, people like, I don't want to, he's very political. I don't want to go with him and, get him to do some work for me. So for me, I try not to
vocalize your
jump on any side, because
it's interesting because some brands, specifically, you see this more probably because they are bigger by their nature. You see it more, but many will issue public statements and say, "This is where we stand on this. We don't agree with this," and that will naturally help. I think they're doing it because it's the right thing to do for them. I'm not saying whichever side, but it will people will gravitate that relate to that message and become more loyal. You know what I'm saying?
Because they've been upfront about it.
Yeah, but
it's like they've been true to themselves.
Yeah, but are they choosing a political side, or are they choosing a particular way that people are being treated? Do you understand what I'm saying? It's not necessarily about.
Yeah. It's normally a moralistic issue.
Yes. So that
that gets to a deeper thing, though, because I mean, all politics really comes down to people. I mean, it might indirectly, all politics is eventually coming down to, is someone being treated fairly? And I think both sides think that someone isn't being treated fairly, and that's why they get wrapped up in it.
I think it's personal, so we might have certain feelings towards this, but there might be someone else listening who's like, well, I have really strong political or religious or whatever views, so them being true to themselves wouldn't be to kind of shy away from that. Like, so what I think, honestly, whatever works for you. And possibly on a closing thought for this particular question, you guys might disagree here, but I think the beauty of it is your name is not always tied to your work. So you don't have to put anything you don't want in your portfolio. And it's not like if you direct a film and associate your name with that, it's always there to shame you. Like, I'm not saying go and do a terrible, terrible job, but like if you truly need the money and you're kind of on the fence, it's not the worst thing in the world, but it doesn't sit the best with you. If you really need to go and do that to support your family, then no one ever need know. You know what I mean? You can do it, you can get paid, and your name's never associated with that. Again, I wouldn't advocate that, but if it's in a grey area, at least there's that to it.
But I suppose that doesn't help your like personal, like, because you might feel, you know, for me, I would choose not to do something even if no one else knew about it, because that's my, and I suppose for me being a Christian, because it's, you know, it's what I believe. So it's my personal, I suppose, relationship with God is what's in it. So it's not really anyone around it. So it's more me and inside me that's the feeling of whether I should do this rather than whether I can hide it. I suppose that
completely. I guess I'm getting away from the darker stuff and thinking more like, I don't know, if it was something that was a bit embarrassing or a bit silly. You're worried that you're
you know, if it's something like, you know, I was doing something for something that was, I suppose, a lot more feminine, that I was trying to keep up this like masculine adventure, you know, rough and ready, and I'm doing like something that's really, really girly, then maybe I wouldn't promote that I'd done that, because it's not, you know, because it's like we're going back to the thing, you only promote the work you want to get back in.
Yeah.
But sometimes, you know, you need to do something to get the money in, and that might not be, you know, that might not be to your taste.
Sure.
Yes. I mean, I think my stuff, I have a long history of stuff that I was like, oh, that's definitely wasn't my first thing, but I was trying to, you know, pay the bills. But it's interesting because as we start talking about this, you realize there's a lot to unpack to this question that really can't be unpacked in probably even 2 episodes or 3 episodes as a whole. But I think Elisa kind of hit the nail on the head in the fact that at the end of the day, like, you don't have to do something, but I think as a general rule, we just all have to just respect each other's feelings or positions or freedom to express themselves. And that means that maybe we don't have to do it, but at the same time, we don't have to necessarily attack others. I don't know. This is a very complicated thing to unpack.
It is. Okay, let's hopefully that helps David and anyone else listening. As you say, a bit of a complex one, but also kind of easy on a fundamental level, at least, of not compromising your beliefs, hopefully. So the next question is from Sierra, and her Instagram handle is Sai, as in S-I, Sai Design Loft. And Sierra, she does beautiful graphics work, which I'm looking at right now, lettering, illustrations, calligraphy, that kind of stuff. And also very talented, so go check her work out. And she asks very simply, how do you recommend pricing your work competitively without pricing too low? And I think this is a very important, very big question. I know we've talked about pricing in a much, much earlier episode, but I like the angle she comes at this from. You know, she's saying, how am I competitive? She's clearly trying to stand out in her market. She's trying to attract clients through pricing low, but she doesn't want to take that too far. She doesn't want to undermine her skills and her services and her talent. So I'm going to open this up to the floor. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think that's a tough one, because it's easy to sit here saying you shouldn't price yourself too low when when you're desperate to get going. You're desperate to get your business to growing. But I don't know. I can only speak from my own experience, and that is, I made a conscious decision in the beginning of doing anything of my own business, whether it was my illustration or my design, to not be the cheap and nasty. I didn't want to be that. I wanted to be known as somebody that created quality stuff, and that meant that they're going to pay a bit more, than your sort of average, I guess. And yeah, I do scare away clients all the time. A lot of people say to me, "Oh, that's too expensive," but at the same time, I also get,
but that pile of money didn't come from nowhere. So.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so you found a way to weave that in. Good for you, Tom.
Got it out the way.
No, but the thing is, it also means then that because I am at that point, and that you also attract the clients that are willing to pay. So it is a catch-22. It is difficult. I'm not saying it's easy, but I guess what I'm saying to her is that she maybe needs to think about where does she want to position herself in the industry. Does she want to be the sort of tail end of the beginning kind of people, where people come in, do a quick business card, thanks very much, $50, whatever. It just depends on how she wants to position her business, I think. I know that's vague.
Yes.
Sorry.
I would say the key word here is competitively.
Yeah.
Which alludes to her having competition and an awareness of that competition. So hopefully she's looking at people who are similar to her, because obviously there's a huge spectrum, everything from $500,000 to $5 for various types of work. So hopefully she is looking at people similar to her. Maybe that's more of the mid-range or the lower range. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But if she's looking at mid-range people and she's going, okay, they charge $500, they charge $300, $200, $1,000, whatever it might be. If she's trying to be competitive there, I think that's not necessarily a bad thing. So if her competitors are charging $500, then she also charges $500, or she charges $495 or $450 or whatever. It doesn't necessarily have to be a race to the bottom. When she talks about pricing too low, I would say that there is always going to be someone lower than you.
Always.
So you can actually never compete on price ever, because it's just a race to the bottom. So that should not be your tactic. But what I would say is, if you're starting out, or you're trying to start out pricing yourself, at least, it's okay to pluck a figure out of the air. It's okay to potentially undercut your competitors if it gets the ball rolling, because it's not a fixed thing. And what we talked about previously is the fact that you should be focusing on how to push that up. So I would say how you should price yourself is what you feel is fair, but that should almost be the quick decision. And your focus should not be constantly watching what everyone else is doing, constantly working on how to drive your price down. Your focus should then go into how to increase your perceived value, how to increase the value you actually provide for your clients, how to, improve your skills, make you a more valuable asset to hire. So say, for example, if all her competitors are charging $500, I wouldn't care less if she suddenly started charging $400. Fine, good for her. Maybe she's getting some extra work. But then it would be really cool if she's like, well, actually, I'm getting more and more referrals. Demand for me is going up, and that's when I can start building my prices. I'm getting incredible results for my clients, and they're telling their friends. So that's when I push my prices up.
Exactly.
Can I do a book recommendation?
Go on.
So I got it the other day, which is the Graphic Artists Guild Handbook of Pricing and Ethical Guidelines, which is really good, actually. It has stuff about lettering in it as well, if that's a specific area of pricing. So that's really good to get a base and to be able to have some copy with it to be able to explain why you're pricing what you're pricing, and more complex pricing methods when it's maybe for a publication and stuff like that. So that's a good book for you. But I'm still, like, for me, I'm still finding my way through the sort of pricing as well, because not all, like every time I get a request, it's always something a bit different. There's no like something set in stone. Whereas like before, when it was just like, okay, we want a website, how many pages, and there was, you had a rough idea. It seems to be every time I get a request, it's something a bit different. And I'm like, like the other day, I had to do some tweaks to one of my fonts, and then send it back to the client who requested it. And I'd never done that before. The book was quite good because it had a specific thing for typography and type design. But that was just like, I'll just pluck something out there, see if that works. And they said, yeah. So, so that was a bonus. But I think, sometimes it's just finding a way, you don't want to go too low, because otherwise I'd rather price higher, do less jobs, but then that one brings in more money than a few smaller jobs, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So, in all my experience, I've never had a time where I've been like, it hasn't been many times where I've priced too high and they've gone, whoa, that's way too much. There's been times where they go, that's just, they just said, it's a way. Because the thing is, you ask for a budget and people don't, I haven't got a budget. So that usually means that they, they're probably not going to be the right suit for you. But, they sort of, if they're a serious client, then they're going to either haggle with you or say, this is the budget. So it depends who it all depends on who you aim for. Because like an individual, you're not going to get much from. But if you're going to get a company, you're going to price a lot more.
Yeah, they understand what it costs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it can be fluid like that. It doesn't need to be a one size fits all. Maybe it should. Maybe that's unethical. I don't know, but
no, I don't know if it should be. I don't know. I don't think it should, because I think the one man guy is going to be probably easier to work with than a corporate, because the corporate, you're normally dealing with a whole lot of minds and a whole lot of opinions for the one project. So you got to sift your way through a lot more. Whereas dealing one on one with a business owner, I think is easier. I don't know. I don't know. It's all different.
It's more personal when it's the one-on-one though. So sometimes there's more of their emotions wrapped up in it. Whereas a business is like, just need this done, but we need it done yesterday.
Well, you see, there's that.
So you're like, you're weighing up like the emotion with just the fast, needs to be done quickly business. So it's which one do you prefer going with, I suppose.
It is so important, and I do feel like there's this uncomfortable dance. And I've been in that position where I've approached someone and they kind of say, "What's your budget?" And it's like, well, I don't want to tell you, because you'll either say no, go away, or if you were going to give me a lower price, you'll now jump it up to what my budget is.
Right.
Or it puts you in the control where I don't know, if they say, "What's your budget?" and I say it's $5,000, they're like, oh, okay, well, for that you get a single logo. But really, they would normally give you much more than that for your money. And there's a lot of trust required there. And I've always felt uncomfortable in those situations, because it's not normal for us as humans. We normally go to a shop, we see how much something costs, and then we buy it. And I personally prefer when someone just puts on their website, look, here's how much I charge for everything. Because I hate that thing of where you reach out and it's like, am I going to get ripped off? Am I going to get 3 times the price that Larry just got before me?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's, people will argue this all day long that, well, I need to know the budget so I know how I can come up with like the right solution within like their budget to make this work. I understand that. But I think that it comes across to most people, especially when you don't live and breathe design, saying what's your budget is the equivalent of me walking into a store and ordering a cake. And I ask, how much is this beautiful cake? And they say, I don't know, how much you got. It sounds insane. I would be like, what do you mean how much I got? Just tell me how much the damn cake is. So
exactly.
I don't know. I think the whole thing is very weird. I understand it, but I also think it's a very off-putting question. And people that can come with creative ways around it are at an advantage.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a designer, so I should understand it, but I still don't. It still kind of baffles me, that way of working. And yeah, I think even having parameters where you start a conversation, you're like, it will cost roughly this much. Oh, great. So you need this and this as well. Well, that's why we're going to bump these costs on top. Like, it's just a more normal way of working. It's less ambiguous. I don't know. Ian, do you do the budget thing?
I sometimes do. Because I use it as a question to windle out people who maybe just want a cheap job.
But would it not do that if you're like, here's how much I charge? That would scare them off if it was way more than what their budget was.
Yeah, because I love when on the site it will say like, what's your budget? And it shows price ranges. That's helpful. Or if people say, just so you know, this is like a base price you can expect, because then I'm like, okay, it's public. I know that it's not something they just made up for me. It's written down.
Exactly.
And then I'm like, okay, well, that's what it is. Either I can do it or I can't.
Yeah, I give people ranges. Like I tell them if the starting price is this and it could go to that, so at least then they know what they're in for. And then if they come back and they start engaging once they have an idea, then they're serious, because now you've given them an idea and now we can get down to the nitty gritty. Okay, this is really how much it's going to cost you, given what we've just discussed. But I just don't think that, me personally, I don't know if, again, I don't know if she's, talking overall, should she be low or just within her particular bracket, as you said, Tom. I'm not sure if always pricing yourself low is the right strategy. It might be the right way to start to get your business going, but again, I don't know how far she is down the line or how long she's been doing this, but I just think ultimately, as you said, it shouldn't be a race to the bottom. You should respect your work and your time, and then in return respect your clients' money, so give them good service. And if you keep that in mind, you keep that going over time, you get more confident and more confident about, this is my hourly rate. I don't do it for less, but I give you good service. I give you a good product. So, I think it's a learning ground. It's a learning thing that you just have to go through.
Yeah, I do think the focus should be maybe not going as high as physically possible, but certainly pushing in that direction. Yeah, should probably be the focus. I've kind of got an evil thought here. I really want to go and find a few of these agencies who just hide behind having no pricing, and just over a space of a few weeks send them 2 separate emails. One being a normal one, being like, hey, like I need a branding thing and a website done. I'm just kind of starting out, like how much would that cost? And then another one being like, hey, I need some branding work and a website doing. I've just sold my massive company and I'm flush with cash. And, I'm starting a new venture and it's going to be a big deal. And like ethically, you would think if the work was the same, the price should be the same. But that, I guarantee that would just be proof that they'd turn around and go, flush with cash, are you? Like, well, here's 5 times the price.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, as you say, Ian, of course you would. I think we probably all would. But
well, I don't know. Yeah.
That's scary how it can be that flexible.
I do think as well that this is a business decision that I think you should, want to make. But I used to offer, if somebody heard my price and they thought it was too much, and I still wanted the work because, I needed the work for whatever reason. Obviously, we need to eat. But, you still want, if I still wanted the work, I would say to them, okay, look, I am willing to lower my price, but it would mean that then you're going to get this kind of thing from me. In other words, I wouldn't give you 3 samples. I wouldn't give you 3 design options. I'd only do 1. And so you can, there's nothing wrong with bartering, but I don't think you should be bartering to a point where you do it for nothing, because then obviously there's no point.
You don't want to look desperate, otherwise they take control.
But you want, so come across, well, my aim, so my aim would be like to come across, you still want to assist them and work within their budget, but it does mean that they won't necessarily get the full package,
I guess you also have to think about, too, you have to think about the implications of the client. So, for instance, if you do, lettering and you want to do it for coffee shops and Starbucks comes to you or someone huge like that and wants you to do a lettering project and you give them a price and they say, no, we can, you're a dime a dozen. I can get people like you to do it for much less than that. Well, maybe you do it because you know you're going to get 20 more clients that need that kind of stuff because they did that because you can showcase that. You're shaking your head at that, but I don't know why you wouldn't want to do something that would get you more future clients.
But there's no guarantee. There's no guarantee that it's going to. I mean, that's kind of
there's no guarantee when you make a product that it's going to sell, but you do it.
True, but I still think there's something there's something feels nasty to me, or I don't know if that's the right word, but there's something feels wrong to me by Starbucks saying, hey, you're a dime a dozen, and I can get Joe down the road to do it cheaper. For me, it's
I'm not saying they'd say it like that, but I'm just saying that there's future implications of doing it. You're right. If someone was dissing you like that, that's not cool.
Yeah.
I just mean if someone's not willing to pay what you wanted them to pay, you have to think about what else they'd offer.
True.
I think what you're saying is there's stuff there's stuff beyond purely the finances to take into account. Yeah. It's not all about the money. You need to have awareness. It's not about money, it's about value, and money is just one form of value transaction.
I'll tell you just real quick what I was thinking of when I was thinking of this is there's a guy, I'm going to butcher his name. It's James Altucher, something like that. Anyways, he talks about how he started a very successful company and he made websites, and he would make them for very big film companies that made large, huge movies. And he was charging them $1,000 for a website for a movie. Now, these companies can obviously pay way more than that, but he said by doing them for so cheap, I would have these big movie sites that I'd made. I could put my portfolio, and because of that, smaller companies would come to me, and I would make an absolute massive amount of money because I had this portfolio of all, Cinemax and all these big movie companies that I had made movie sites for. So was that beneficial to him? I don't know. He said it was. He said that he sold the company for a tremendous amount of money because he did that.
Okay, well, that's fair enough. But sometimes that can also scare people away, I think. Sometimes people might think, oh, no, that person's going to be way too expensive for me if they're doing business for big guys. I don't know. Yeah, it's just something to think about.
Yes. But just that we're throwing out all kinds of business examples here. But there's one with how Facebook grew, where for canvases, open canvas by canvas when it started, and it started at Harvard. And what was it called? Yeah, the Little Bighorn. They talk about it in the Social Network movie. And there was basically some campuses which were resistant to Facebook going there. So what they do is they'd get on every surrounding campus until that final one caved to the pressure. So you can kind of do a similar thing with clients, where if you want to go after a big client, you can start small, but then build up slightly bigger and bigger and bigger until you're working with all their competitors and making their competitors outshine them, and then they finally kind of cave. So it's you strategically kind of pincer movement in on them. And pricing is an aspect of that. Smart. But anyway, we're kind of jumping away from pricing competitively here, but we're just thinking about other ways that pricing fits in. So hopefully that helps Sierra. Of course, anyone listening and the three people whose questions we're answering, do leave any follow-up comments, and always happy to elaborate either here or on social media. But yeah, to dive into the final question, it's from Rebecca, and this is Rebecca with a K-A-H at the end of her name. And she's got quite a long Instagram handle, so hopefully I won't murder this, but it's Becca_Isaiah53 design, which I'm not going to spell out for everyone, but hopefully we can put in the show notes. But yeah, Rebecca is really, really lovely. She's been following along with my videos that I do on Instagram. And I believe as a result of those, she's actually started doing her own daily video tips, which is really, really awesome. So yeah, it's great to see her putting out content and getting into that.
Cool.
Awesome.
And she asks, she says, as a new designer, I was wondering how you all handle basic file organization as you work on projects. Do you have a system so your hard drive doesn't buckle under the weight of so much data? And also, how do you organize each project? So there's kind of two parts to Rebecca's question. I hear this quite a lot running Design Cuts because we have terabytes and terabytes of resources which our community have kind of stockpiled. So I've got a few thoughts, but I'll open the floor. What do you guys think? Do you have this problem of just being overwhelmed by so many resources, and how do you keep track of them?
Yeah, I have that problem. Sometimes I almost buy double products because I've lost track of what I've got. But yeah, for just from a file organization point of view or jobs that you're working on, I started a system years ago that helped me keep track of my work, and especially clients that requested old files. You know, they say, "Oh, can you send me that job that you did 2 years ago? You know, doing this and this."
Yeah.
And if you don't have a system in place, that could literally mean 5 hours of searching. You know, so I basically would open a job ticket for every job. I'd have a physical book that I wrote the job ticket in and described the job and what client and the date. And then every file associated with that job had that code in the name. So all I had to do was do a search on my Mac for that number, and all those files would come up. And, I found that to be the easiest way of dealing with that kind of mass work. And then obviously you back it up and you put it onto, a hard drive every so often. And so that doesn't, clog up your computer. So that was the best way.
That's really good, actually. That's what I used to do at my first job, like a job ticket thing. And so because you used to have a machine that you would then search under that job down and it would give you everything. I don't know why I haven't continued that, because mine is just under names. And so I might be looking for like a Photoshop document and all it's called is client.psd.
Yeah, that's terrible. It must be a nightmare. How do you find anything? Oh my word.
Well, it's normally, everything's under. I've got everything under, like, there'd be a client under,
the name of the client,
retro supply, or there'd be a client under design cuts, and then stuff inside there. So, I could search for that and then look inside that folder and hopefully find the abstractly named Photoshop document that I called. So.
I know we posted a meme about this ages ago, but that thing where it's like new.psd, new.
Yeah.
new.psd, new final.psd, final.psd. And that would happen all the time for me. And then as you did a lot of projects and you didn't delete or rename or tidy any of those files up, you had thousands of files staring at you with all pretty much the same name, and it was just maddening. And you'd have to go through all the thumbnails of each one to figure out what the hell it was. And then even then, you're like 90% sure it was the final version, but because about 18 files said final for that project, you had no idea.
That's my system now. Is that how we're supposed to do it? That's the system I use.
Yeah.
What? You guys, I'm serious.
No, Dustin, come on.
At my least organized, it does get turned to that, but yeah, I'm a little more organized than that.
Yeah, so I don't know how would you organize your projects? Because I had my working documents, and then a links folder. I'm sure everybody's got a links folder.
Yeah.
And then all the versions and whatever would be in a folder called WIP, which is work in progress. And then when things were finished and they went to print, or were ready to go to print, or ready to be whatever, I'd have a separate folder called send to print. So at least I know all I have to do is go to that folder, and that would be the last file that I sent to print. So it sounds like really pedantic, but man, you got to do that, otherwise you go mad. I don't know. Yeah.
I used to, when I finished, if it was a print product or print client, then once it gone off print, I would do a thing called a package, which was in InDesign.
Yes.
Where you'd package
everything.
You do it, and it would collect all the fonts, and it collect all the images, and save a PDF, and then I'd have that final folder.
That's so cool.
Finished, so I know that everything that I'd used was there.
Yeah.
Is it just me that function's only in InDesign, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I always thought that's so neat.
Yeah.
It would be great if that worked for things like Illustrator.
Yeah, Illustrator needs that.
I would love that Illustrator.
I know a lot of our community are big fans of Adobe Bridge for file organization.
Yeah, I uninstalled it because it just annoyed me, because every time I pressed a certain key command, it would pop up and it'd take forever to load.
Me too. Oh my goodness. I also uninstalled it. Sure.
Okay, so we won't be recommending that.
I'm sure it's a good program,
yeah, but for me,
it just annoyed me, and I was like, "Oh, get out of the way."
I had a similar experience.
I think it's meant to be quite thorough, but clearly there's some issues, teething issues,
user interface issues. But you want to label yourself. You want to be like, I'm a bridge guy. Like I know how to use that, and I wield it like a awesome sword. But yeah.
You could make a living being the person who knows how to use Adobe Bridge.
Yeah.
Teach classes on it.
You have a whole YouTube channel of this is how
it's not widely discussed. We've got a community member, Julie Meredith, who is a ninja at it, and she's put a few guides, and I'm like, that looks amazing, but I just haven't bothered to master it to her level. But I kind of wish I had that in the locker. But yeah, like going back to projects for a second, I would have a similar thing to Lisa. And I would have folders where I'd have, say, a folder for materials. So if I were using resources or products for the product, I'd keep them in there in one place. Then I would have a folder for mood boards or inspiration or something like that if I needed it. Another folder for the kind of work in progress files that are just taking shape. And then within that, I would try to name them in a logical way, where it would be like initial draft, like revision, final, etc. And then I would have the final folder where it was like the deliverables for the client. And I think even doing that, what I would recommend is even cloning some stuff. So say there's materials that you use for a lot of projects, I would clone them into that materials folder within the main project folder.
Yeah, I did that.
Because then it's all in one place. But if every project you're having to like dart between folders that are in completely different locations on your hard drive, it gets confusing and the back and forth doesn't help. But when you feel like everything's there, it's like, I've got my mood boards, I've got my fonts, I've got my graphics, like I've got everything I need, I've got all my working files. That seems to be better, I think.
Yeah. And also a handy thing to remember is include your job number if you start using that system on the invoice. So when a client phones you up and says, oh, remember that job that you did for us at blah, 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 blah. Then you say, can you have a look at the invoice? Tell me the job number. And they say, oh, yes, it's this and this. And then all you have to do is, type that into your computer and Bob's your uncle.
Plus, you just sound like you have it so together when you're like, just give me the job number, and then you can type it in. It sounds so slick,
So pro. So pro. Yeah.
I mean, this is really only necessary when you are as prolific as Lisa, the machine glands. And you've had so many projects, you can't remember that.
I also used to, I don't know if you got, I also used to put the job number actually on the job. So if it was a brochure, you'd find my job number somewhere in there. So you could look at the actual hard copy. Yeah, definitely.
What is it, like the Da Vinci Code? Like you just find these secret hidden messages. What the hell is this doing on my magazine cover?
Yeah, it would be there. You'd find it.
That's hilarious. So Rebecca also asks about, do we have a system so our hard drive doesn't buckle under the weight of so much data? And really, I just think it's a case of sticking your stuff on the cloud now periodically. Like it's not going to work, and I don't really like the idea. I think it's a bit archaic of having it on a bunch of external hard drives. They can crash. There's not really a backup of the backup. So yeah, I would periodically just download all of these organized folders and client project folders onto the cloud somewhere. If it's somewhere like Dropbox, I would pay the additional fee to have like the extra backup.
Yeah, it's worth it.
And easy restore options.
I just keep on my computer whatever I'm currently using. So, you can go, I use Dropbox and pay for the premium, and then I'm just constantly, maybe once a week, going through and checking off the boxes to sync what I'm actually using and unsyncing what I'm not.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So is there anything else when it comes to project organization?
This is just a random thing, but like I find either I'll use like, this isn't so much for files, but just for my mind, I'll either use Trello or just a text editor. Actually, there's one called To-Do, TUEX, DUEX. Anyways, it's like a just really simple way to manage tasks that I love. I use all the time.
Yeah.
You can move things around and whatnot.
I think there's a wealth of project management stuff we can get into. I almost want to get into that on a follow-up call.
For sure. Yeah.
I kind of think, I think Rebecca was kind of coming at it from the side of files and file organization primarily. But I do actually think we need to devote possibly even a whole episode to project management, because there's a ton of tools which we've used over the years and just methodologies and ways of making it better. In fact, I'm going to make a note of this. I think like the perfect project would be a good thing to talk about.
One more real quick for file management. There's something called Daisy Disk. Have you guys ever heard of this?
Mm-mm.
It will scan your computer, and they call it Daisy Disk because it kind of looks like a flower when it's done, and it shows you where all your memory is being allocated, how it's being used, and then it breaks it down slowly into like little flowers out, showing you what each thing is. So you can really easily be like, oh, here's where most things are being used up. And lots of times I'll find, oh, wow, like I have so many photos synced to this computer that don't need to be there, and I'll, get rid of them. But it's called Daisy Disk. There's other similar things. It's very useful to visually see.
Yeah,
where is
to see
all
what
of
you're
my
using on your
memory and stuff being used.
Okay. That's a good tip.
That's cool. Nice. Cool. Well, I enjoyed that as always. Nice variety from the listeners, and we got quite a few listener questions this time when we asked. So I think we're definitely going to do another one of these in the upcoming weeks.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, that's cool. Nice. Well,
so does
hopefully, Ian silently smiling here. Ian, will you keep it down, mate? Honestly.
I'm so loud.
Oh, sorry.
Jesus, so shouty. David, Sierra, Rebecca, we hope that you found the answers helpful, as well as all the very kind listeners at home. We hope that this shed some light on these areas for you guys. And as always, we look forward to seeing you next time.
Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode. We hope that you found our answers helpful and that it got you thinking about your own creative work. Remember, whatever struggles you may be going through, there are always others in the same position. As always, you can find full show notes for this episode over at honestdesigners.com, or find us over on iTunes by searching for The Honest Designers Show. If today's episode helped you, then it would mean the world to us if you took just a moment to leave us a quick review over on iTunes, as this is literally the best way for your fellow designers to discover the show. Thanks again for tuning in. As always, we appreciate it, and we will see you next week right here on The Honest Designers Show.